On today's episode of the One Year Life Challenge, we're going to talk about 10 ways to make those difficult conversations you should be having easier. Hello everyone, I know it's tough. There's people in your life that need clarity, there's situations you need to end. You know this, you've known this for a long time, but you've put it off because of the awkwardness and the difficultness of confronting someone in order to create real change in your life and get what's best for you. I know I've been there, I know that you're thinking of a situation right now, and today I want to talk about 10 specific ways to get on with that conversation so you can start living the life you deserve. As always, I'm going to begin with a quote on the subject, and that quote is, "Learning that you can't control the other person's reaction and that it can be destructive to try can be incredibly liberating. It not only gives the other person the space to react however they need to, but also takes a huge amount of pressure off you. You will learn things about yourself based on their reaction, but if you are prepared to learn, you'll feel free from that desperate need for their reaction to go one certain way." Douglas Stone from the book Difficult Conversations. Isn't it true? I've learnt this and it's been such an important lesson I'm really excited to share with you today. The way people react is their karma, the way you react is your karma, and you don't need to stress on how people react. You know, people will decide on how they react to situations based on how they feel in the moment, and how they feel in the moment is a collection of how they see the world and experiences that has happened to them, which you've had no control over. So really what you need to do is be clear, do the right thing by you. The people who are supportive will understand, the people who are unsupportive won't understand, and either way you win, because the unsupportive people will get angry and leave and the supportive people will support you. So my personal story is I avoided a lot of difficult conversations. You know, in my marriage I avoided difficult conversations because I just didn't want to deal with the drama that came from them. In work I know I avoided difficult situations because once again I was just constantly ruminating about the drama, thinking this would happen, that would happen, this would happen, and thinking I was responsible for the way the person was going to react. I knew the things I had to talk about were true and accurate, however I didn't say them. And I didn't have a system. And I want to share with you today 10 ways you can just stand in front of the person in your life that you need to be clear with and know that you'll get the right outcome. The right outcome is just about you expressing yourself. Remember, trying to control how people react, you'll live a very frustrating life. Going inside and deciding on how you react, you'll live a happy life. So what's the first way to really excel at these difficult conversations? Well, number one is be present. Quite often when people get nervous, they're worried about what could happen in the future or how this person's reacted in the past. Those things are never as bad as they seem. You know, Mark Twain, we always use that quote in this series, lots of terrible things have happened to me in my life and some of them eventually happened. Thinking about all these bad things, you eventually go through the stress anyway. So if you're going to think about this person punching you for saying something, you might as well get punched because you feel the emotional pain anyway thinking about it. This is defeated by presence. Being present means you can respond, not react, respond to the situation. It means that you can genuinely look the person in the eye and be there with them as you deliver this news. Number two, acknowledge your anxiety. The anxiety that comes into your body is a chemical cascade easily detected by science and blood tests to tell you, be ready. The situation you're going to go in is going to require some attention, and here's some chemicals to make you alert. Anxiety is really over alertness, and it's an evolutionary fact. We all become anxious, and you simply need to acknowledge that. I know it sounds crazy, but quite often I'll say, you know, in the internal dialogue, I say, I can feel anxiety coming on. Let me sit with it for a second. The minute you acknowledge it, it disappears because your brain doesn't want you to be anxious all the time. That creates stress, inflammatory disease, which lead to cancer and heart disease and all sorts of ailments. It doesn't want that for you. It just wants you to take notice. It's like your friend who keeps, tapping you on the arm. He doesn't want to tap you on the arm and eventually hurt you. He wants to tap you on the arm till you take notice. Number three, plan, but don't overplan. Yes, go in with a structure, maybe even these 10 points, remember them, and plan. Decide on where you want this to be and how you want it to go. Don't overplan though. The overplanning is what kills it. It means you can't be spontaneous if anything changes during the conversation. 4, pick the right setting. I would generally try not to have, for example, in business situations, I would try not to have conversations in the office because the office is stuffy, stale, people respond as an employee rather than a person. And it's really important that you choose a setting which allows you to communicate openly without taking on roles like employee, wife, husband, something that's novel and new, which allows you to really get stuck into how you both feel in the moment about the situation. Number 5, use I statements. You're the person who's been trying to be clear. This other person is the person you're directing the information at. And saying things like, you always do this and you've been like this, is going to create an argument. And they're not talking, you're talking, so why are you directing everything at them? I feel that this is the way I have seen your behaviour and I have felt this way because of it, and I will no longer stand for that and I will now be doing these things. It's about you, it's about the I. And if you control how you are, you don't have to worry about the other person. Avoid creating conflict by using you or we, because ultimately the other person can get defensive. Number 6, listen as much as you talk. It's super important, especially at the end of trying to clarify things, that the person feels heard. And if they have things to say, listen to them. It doesn't mean you need to agree with them. It means you should actively listen, maybe nod and make some noises. And at the end of what they say, you can say, listen, I've heard that you're very frustrated by the situation, don't agree, and I appreciate your comments. However, I will still move forward with insert whatever your conversation was about. Number 7, think about the take-home message. Remember, sometimes these conversations do go for an extended period of time, especially if it's emotional, it's a breakup. Make sure that the message they take home is very simple. For example, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, and we need to end this for the health of both of us. That's the take-home message. You don't want the take-home message to be sloppy and confusing and recapping the entire relationship. You want the take-home message to be very clear, and you need to know what you want them to know before you get into it. Number 8, watch your body language. If you start doing this when they're talking or looking at the ground, you're going to create a hostile environment which isn't going to allow you to get the results you want. Number 9, check you are understood. My favourite saying is, what do you believe you've heard? And people will quite often say, well, I've heard that you no longer want to be in a relationship. I'll say that's exactly right. It's so important to do this. The amount of times I've seen people break up, but one party doesn't realise they've broken up and the whole problem starts all over again. Ask the simple question, how do you feel, or what do you believe I've actually said? And they'll repeat back to you what they've heard, because what you say and what the other person heard there can be a huge difference. And when they say, for example, I've heard that you want to take a small break, you can say, no, I'm sorry that's what you've taken. We're taking a proper break. This is the end of the relationship. And you can clarify that without it going on for weeks and months. And number 10, move on. You've said your piece. Do not, if you still interact with this person, if this is a difficult conversation about maybe someone's behaviour, don't keep harping on and on and on about it. It's being dealt with and you need to move on, because quite often what we do is we carry that grudge around and we see that person through the prism of their mistakes, and ultimately we behave in a way that creates their mistakes. We keep doing it and they fall into the victim and enabler mode. You need to move on. If you've told them, listen, I'm sick and tired of you being late, they, from that point on, have been told you need to treat them like a normal person now. You can't, if they are late again, you can't say, oh, well, been late 1,000 times. You need to treat the situation and move on, and it's the best for both parties. I know that difficult conversations are challenging, and I know for certain that you've got one right now that you need to have with someone. Look at these 10 steps, something to think about, because every time you empower yourself by being clear with someone, you give them clarity and you give yourself freedom. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, but until then, goodbye.